Hey there, welcome to this exciting session on using Docker with our microservices. So if you are new to this channel or if you are watching my videos for the first time, then I would highly recommend that you check out the description for the link to the entire series. So this particular video is a part of a series that I have done over here. And to get a context into the source code that is being used, I would highly recommend checking out the earlier videos as well. So talking about what we are going to cover containerization, and this particular concept has gained a lot of popularity in recent years. And it's important that you learn how you can containerize your microservices. During the process of containerizing our microservices, we will talk about Spring Boot profiles. We will learn about what they are and how you can make use of them. We will also learn about this amazing thing, Docker Compose, and we will learn how you can Dockerize your services like your gateway and all using Docker Compose. So this is going to be a complete hands-on session where we will be actually doing things in a hands-on way practically. Now, if you have been watching my videos and if you haven't liked or subscribed yet, I would highly recommend doing so, because every subscriber or every subscription that I get on my channel motivates me to bring in more such amazing content for you all. The support and love that I get from my viewers impacts my ability to bring in more such amazing free content for you all. So I would highly recommend that you hit the subscribe button, like this particular video, and turn on the bell notifications. Also feel free to leave a comment to let me know what kind of videos I should bring for you all. Now, without a further ado, let's jump right into the session. Welcome back. So now let's talk about containerizing our Spring Boot microservices. So what are we going to build? So we are going to containerize each and every microservice that we have, and we are going to take everything to Docker. So this is what our architecture is going to look like. So we have 3 microservices: job, company, and review. All 3 will be running on Docker. They have their own individual databases, which is again running on Docker. Then you have the gateway, which is doing the job of routing requests, and it is serving as an interface for the external clients. So that will also be on Docker. And we have RabbitMQ, config server, Eureka server, and Zipkin, which will also be running on Docker. So this entire thing will be running on Docker, and we will be managing everything from a single file, which is Docker Compose. So we don't have to go to our IDE and turn on every single service, but Docker is going to manage everything for us. So this is what we are going to build. So without a further ado, let's get started. Welcome back. So let us start talking about Spring Boot profiles. But before we talk about profiles, I want to present a problem to you. So let us say I'm here in job microservice and I have my configurations or all the application properties defined over here. All right. Now, if you see these configurations, these are the configurations that are for my current system. Now, what happens if I Dockerize this application, or what happens if all my applications and microservices start running in Docker? So in that particular case, you can no longer use local host over here. That is because you have the microservices running now in different individual containers and not on your local machine. So instead, you will have to replace this with the container name. And that is where the concept of Spring Boot profiles come into picture. So here we are able to make use of PostgreSQL with the help of localhost, but config server, if it's running on container, we would want to include container name over here. And there will be few properties that we might want to change based on the environment in which the application is running. And this is where the concept of profiles come into picture. So what are Spring Boot profiles? So Spring Boot profiles provide a way to segregate the parts of your application configuration and make it available only in certain environments. Now, what I mean over here is if your microservice is running in multiple environments like testing, staging, production, there is a possibility that you might need different configurations for different environments. So you might have a different database or a different URL of database for testing. You might have a different URL or different instance of database for staging. And depending on where your application is running, you might want your application to use that particular instance of database depending on where it's running. So this is where Spring Boot profiles come into picture. So you can have different profiles of your properties, and based on where your application is running, the corresponding property file is being picked up and it is being utilized. The other property files are not being used. So this is what profiles are in simple terms. So profiles enable Spring Boot application to work in different environments and to run seamlessly with the help of different configurations for each environment. And Spring Boot does the job of managing this during runtime. You just have to configure them. So that's Spring Boot profiles for you. So let us now begin preparing our projects for Docker. So what we will need to do is we need to modify all the configurations and create different profiles for application to work in Docker as well as to work on our local system. And also you need to make sure that you have this particular plugin, Spring Boot Maven plugin, added in all your microservices. Because of this plugin, you will be able to Dockerize your application without creating a Docker file. So this is something you need to check for. Now let us head over to application.properties. And what we need to do is we need to create a duplicate of this file. So I'll copy this file over here and I'll paste it at the same location. But this time I'll say -docker over here. So we are creating a separate application.properties file for Docker environment. Okay. And we are creating a separate profile, as you can see. So we are making use of this concept of Spring Boot profiles. All right. Now let us modify the application Docker. So here in data source, I'll need to specify the database URL over here. So I need to specify the container name here. So I'll say Postgres, and rest of the thing I'll keep same. Now in case of Eureka server, I will specify the container name over here as well. So I'll say service registry, REG. So you need to make sure you create containers with this name only. So I can add config server over here. So I can say config-server like so. Okay. And if you scroll down, so we need to add for Zipkin as well. So I have not defined the URL for Zipkin. Okay. So we need to define the tracing endpoint. Okay. So I need to say management.Zipkin.tracing.endpoint. So this is something you need to define explicitly because by default, the localhost URL is taken. So I'll say, so I'll copy this URL structure over here. Okay. And I'll paste it over here and I'll say HTTP Zipkin. And so that will be my container name. And here I'll say 9411. And here I'll have to add API-v2-spans like so. Okay. So we are done changing the URLs. Now what you can do is you need to head over in your job app and you can see this clients folder which you have created. So here you are making use of service names over here. Okay. but this might change when you are working with the containers. So for that purpose, we will make use of variables defined in properties. So what I will do is I'll create 3 properties over here. Okay, I'll say job hyphen service dot URL is equal to HTTP colon job colon 8082. Okay, so this is for my job microservice, and I'll replicate this and I'll say this is for my company service, and I can again paste it and I can say this is for my review service, and I'll change the URLs and port. So I'll say company and I'll say review, and I can say 8081 is company and 8083 is review. All right. Now what we can do is we need to head over to application, so not application.properties, but company client, and over here we need to make use of another field. So I'll say URL, okay, and I'll say $, and I'll specify the company service URL. Okay, so I'll say company. So wait a minute, let me take this on a new line. Okay, and I'll say company hyphen service dot URL over here. So with this, what we are doing is we are actually specifying the URL, and the URL is supposed to be picked up from the configuration because of this syntax. And where have we defined configuration? So we have defined it over here. Okay, so we have specified this for client, like company client, only one of the clients. We need to also specify this for review. Okay, so I need to head over to review here, and I'll copy this same thing and I'll paste it over here like so. And here I'll say review service.url. Okay, so now the URL is being picked up from application.properties file. Now what I need to do is I need to copy this, and I also need to add it to the default one. Okay, so the default application.properties, there also we need to add this. So there I'll say localhost, okay, and localhost. So if there is no profile that is being used, and if we are making use of default application.properties, then it will point to localhost. Otherwise, it is pointing to containers. Or we are done doing configurations for the job service. Now what I will do is I will close the other tabs. Okay, and I'll just keep company client open. Okay, because we might want to replicate the syntax in review or company. Now I'll head over to company microservice here, and I'll open up the application.properties. Now over here, I'll just duplicate this. So I'll say application hyphen docker.properties. Okay, and here let me see if I'm defining any clients. So I'm defining a review client. Okay, so what I can do is I can copy these URLs and I can have them added over here. Okay, like so. Okay, so there is some problem with the paste, so I'll just press enter and then add it. Okay, so now it works perfectly fine, and I'll also get these added in the local file, like the file which we have without any profile. Okay, and here as usual I'll specify localhost. Okay, and I'll get this copied across. Okay, so we have this defined, and I'll close this over here. So now in the company microservices, I'll make all the necessary changes. Okay, and I can keep this as a reference. So I'll say Postgres, and I'll paste Postgres over here. I'll scroll down. For Eureka server, I need to say service registry here. So I'll paste that over here. And I need to add the Zipkin URL. Okay, so you see I have one spelling mistake over here. So typo. So management.zipkin.tracing.endpoint. That is what it is. So I'll copy this endpoint as well. And what I will do is I'll paste it over here for Zipkin, like so. And I believe rest of the things are fine. Okay. So rest of the things are okay and there are no issues as such. Now what I can do is I can go to the clients that I have created over here. So I have only one client, which is review client, and I can copy the syntax that I have defined here. And here I'll say, so instead of company service, I'll say review service. Okay. And it seems I'm getting an error. Okay. So I need to specify name over here if I'm specifying URL, which makes sense. So here we have company service URL, and let me check. So I'll go to src main Java, and here in clients, I'll go to review client. So yeah, I've made the change over here. So we have review service.url here, and we have made the changes, similar changes over here as well. Okay, so this is now making use of hard-coded URLs. All right. And we have replicated the same in the default application.properties. So I'll collapse this. And if you go to application.properties, we have replicated the same. So far, so good. So this is also done. This is company microservice. Now let us do this for review as well. Okay. So I'll go to application.properties. Here I'll say Postgres SQL. So first let me copy this. So I'll just copy these and I'll paste it over here at the top. Okay. So this is done. Now I can replicate the application.properties into Docker profile. I have a new profile now. I can collapse this. So now I'll scroll up and I'll use the company microservice Docker file as a reference. So I'll copy these three tags and I'll get them pasted in review Docker file. Okay. And if I scroll down now, so here I need to add the database container name, which I add, and I need to add the service registry. So I'll add that over here. And then I need to add the Zipkin URL, which I'll add over here. Right. So rest everything looks fine and there are no issues as such. Okay. So I have everything set up now. And one last thing, I believe we need to check for clients. So we don't have any clients defined in review. But despite that, I have created the URLs here just in case in future, if we want to use, we can make use of these. Okay. So this is about configuring all three microservices and getting them ready with Spring Boot profiles, along with container names that we are going to use for other parts of the application or architecture. So now we are ready to run these applications or Spring Boot applications with Docker. Hey there, welcome back. So we have prepared our project to be Dockerized and we have everything ready. Now let us begin building the Docker images. So to do so, we have to make sure that we have Docker up and running. All right. So I have started my Docker desktop here, as you can see, and I have my terminal open. Now what we are going to do is we are going to start building the Docker image. And let us start building the Docker image for our service registry project. All right. So let us head over to the terminal. So you can either use the inbuilt terminal or command prompt on your operating system, or alternatively, you can use the one that you get with IntelliJ. So you can click on the terminal tab over here and you can make use of this. And you can even add new tabs over here if you wish to. Okay. So I would be using PowerShell since I'm on Windows. Okay, you can choose the equivalent one for your operating system. And what we are going to do is we are going to navigate to the service registry directory. Okay, so I'll check where I am right now. So I am in company microservice. So I'll go one step above and I'll say service registry. Okay, and now I'm in this particular project. So I'm going to clear everything. Now we need to write in the command and we will be making use of Maven wrapper over here. Okay. So here is the command that you can see over here. So this is the format. So what we are going to do is we are going to make use of Maven wrapper over here. As you can see, I'm going to say Spring Boot :build image -d Spring Boot dot build image name is equal to. So this is what I'm going to then specify. So my Docker Hub username and my image name. So the image name that I want it to be. So if you're not aware or if you don't have a account on Docker Hub, I would request you all to head over to hub.docker.com. So I am on Docker Hub and I have already created an account over here. Okay. So I would request you all to create an account. Okay. And you will need the username that you set over here. Okay. And what we are going to do is after creating the Docker image, we are going to push this image to the Docker registry, which is hub.docker.com. All right. So I have this command created over here. So my username is decode007 and service reg is the name of the image. So I'm going to just copy this command. I'm going to head over to my terminal and here I'm going to paste this and I'll say enter. Now, the moment you say enter, you're going to see some processing happening over here. Okay. So you'll see like the image building process is happening. There are quite a few tests that are running. Okay. And you can see this prompt over here, like it's building the image and it's also pulling in Paketo build packs. Okay. So we'll wait for a while. So it will download everything, it will pull everything, and then it will create your own image. Okay. So here it is pulling in Paketo build packs because it's using the concept of cloud native build packs to create Docker image. Now build packs are modular and language focused and know how to build application based on different languages and frameworks. For example, there are build packs for Java application, Node.js application, Python application, and so on. Okay. So Paketo build packs is a specific implementation of cloud native build packs that Spring Boot uses. It is using this since we have a Spring Boot project. And each percentage update is indicating the progress of pulling the base builder image from the Docker registry. And in this particular case, it's Docker Hub over here. Okay. Now, once this image is pulled, so this image is pulled over here, it will be used to create the Docker image. So you can see over here, after the build packs were pulled in, creator was started and it started creating the image over here. And this is the entire stack trace. And if you scroll down a bit, you will see like there are quite a few layers that have been added. Okay. And the image is now saved. Okay. And you're seeing build success and it took this much of time. So the time it will take will vary for your project. Okay. It completely depends on the processing speed that your computer has and also your internet connection. Okay. And now if we say Docker images, we are going to see this particular image that exists now. We are also seeing Paketo build packs builder, Paketo build packs run, and so on. Okay. But we are concerned about our service registry over here. Okay. So we are seeing the Docker image. Now the time is to push this image to Docker Hub. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say Docker push and I'm going to write in the name of the image. Okay. So I'll copy this and I'll paste this and I'll say enter. Now there is a possibility that you might be asked for logging into Docker right from the terminal. So you can enter your username and password and get logged in, but it didn't prompt for me because I had already authenticated. So now it's pushing the entire image to the remote Docker Hub. All right. And we'll wait for a while. So the process is complete. Now let us head over to Docker Hub. And I'll open the Docker Hub website and if I refresh over here, so after refresh, you will see service registry Docker image appear over here. Okay. So what we have done is we have successfully created the Docker image for service registry and we have pushed it to Docker Hub. All right. So this is the entire process that we need to follow for creation of Docker image and getting it live onto Docker Hub. Hey there, welcome back. So it's now time that we should Dockerize all our other microservices and get them pushed to Docker Hub. All right. So we have done this with service registry. We need to Dockerize all the other 5 microservices. So I would request you all to take this up as a challenge. You are aware of the process as to what you need to do. So you need to trigger this command in the root directory of the project. And once this command generates the Docker image file, you can push the Docker image file by running Docker image, and after space, you can specify the Docker image name. So this is something that we need to do for the rest of our microservices. And I would want you all to take this up as a challenge. So you can pause this video right now, attempt this as a challenge, and see if you are able to get Docker images for all your projects. All right, so I hope this went well with you. So let us do this for our other projects. So I'm going to start with company microservice. Okay, so I'll head over to our terminal and I'll switch over to company microservice. And here I'll paste that command and I'll say enter. Now with this, the process will begin, and you will notice that it does not fetch the Paketo build packs this time because we had already downloaded it when we were creating Docker image for service registry. All right, so it won't do that this time. So it will just create the image, and this time it will be much more faster. So Docker image creation is complete, and you can see over here that this is the Docker image that's created. So the creation is done. Now we can push this particular image. So I can say push, and so Docker push, and let me paste the image name over here. Okay, invalid reference format. So this should be removed. Or 1 second. So I'll just remove this command. Okay, so you don't need to have a /. So it should be review ms like so. Okay, and I'll press enter, and you can see that it's now begin the push process. So the push process is complete, and if we head over to our browser and if I refresh, you should see review microservice appear over there. All right, and now we can try the same process for job microservice. So I'll head over to the terminal and I'll switch over. Okay, sorry. So I need to add full stop, and I'll switch over to job microservice directory and I'll paste the command. And this will begin the process to create the image for job microservice. So we'll wait for a while. So the image creation is successful. Now we need to say Docker push, and we need to get the image name. So I'll paste it over here, and this will be pushed to like Docker Hub. So hub.docker.io. All right. So we'll wait for a while until the push process is done. So the processing is complete. And if you head over to the browser and if you hit a refresh, so we are seeing the job microservice available now over here. Okay. So let us do this for the rest of the 2 microservices. So I'll copy this for gateway microservice, and here I'll switch to gateway microservice project. So I'll say cd gateway, and I'll paste this over here. Okay, and it will begin the process to generate a Docker image. So the image creation is done completely. This time it took 38 seconds. So now I'll say Docker push, and I'll copy the image name until over here, and I'll paste it over here. Now this is going to get this pushed onto Docker Hub. Okay, so we'll wait for a while again. So the process is complete. Now if you head over to the browser and if we hit refresh, you should see the gateway microservice project over here as well. Okay, now let us do this for the last remaining microservice, which is the config server. Okay, so what we can do is we can come over here We can switch over to the config server project. Okay, so I can say config server and I can paste the command here. Now this should begin the process without any issues. Okay, so we'll wait for a while until this finishes. So this process is done and now we need to push it to the Docker hub. So I'll say Docker push and I'll copy the image name from here and it should get this pushed to Docker repository. Okay, so you can see over here it's preparing and it will get it up on the system. So the image is pushed and now if you head over to the browser and if I hit refresh, you should see the config server appear over here. So all our microservices have been pushed to Docker Hub. Okay, and the process is fairly simple. You just need to generate the image locally and you need to get that image pushed onto the server. You might be asked for authentication for Docker Hub, which you can do from the terminal. And once you are authenticated, the process should be fairly simple. All right. So that's about this class. And in the next lecture, we will move forward with this. All right. So we have Dockerized all our microservices and we have even got them pushed to Docker Hub. Now, what we need to do is we need to start managing all our microservices with the help of Docker Compose file. So I'm going to open the Docker Compose file over here. Okay. Now this Docker Compose file has configuration for RabbitMQ, Zipkin, pgadmin, and Postgres. What I will be doing is I will be adding more components to Docker Compose. So you can see I have this notepad file where I have the updated version of Docker Compose. And you can see I have Postgres. If you scroll down, I have config server along with the Docker image name. And I have service registry, company microservice, job microservice, and I have one more instance of job microservice over here, which I don't think we will need. So I'll just remove this. Okay. We have review microservice. And I have RabbitMQ, okay, and Zipkin and gateway microservice. There is a lot in this particular file, okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this file and I'm going to move this into our project here, okay. So let us go through this file. So you will see I have the configuration for Postgres, which is okay, it does not change. Same for pgadmin. Now there is this new addition of config server here. Okay, I have specified the image name over here, the container name. So this will be the container name which will be created using this particular image. And then I have port and then I have specified the dependency. Okay, so this dependency is something that we need to specify. So what is this depends on tag? So config server is dependent on service registry and service registry is this particular container over here. Okay. So what I mean by specifying this is this container or this service should be started after service registry. Okay. So that is what we have specified over here. And we have added this to a couple of networks like a microservice network and Postgres network. Okay. And you can see over here, I have also specified which profiles I wish to use for this particular image. So the active profile is of Docker. So by default, if you see this is config server. Okay, so /docker file will be picked up. Okay, so we have defined /docker file for all our microservices. So that is what will be picked up. Okay. Now you can see over here, service registry depends on RabbitMQ, Zipkin, Postgres, and pgadmin. So first these services will be started and then service registry will be started. Okay. And I have added this to a couple of networks again. We have company microservice again, which is dependent on service registry and also the config server. Then we have job microservices. And here we have specified a couple of things like the Docker profile is supposed to be kept active And we have specified the Eureka client service URL default zone. Okay. And this is the container name that we have specified. Okay. So we have specified similar things for the rest of the microservices. And if you go down, we have a couple of networks that we have created over here. Now what we need to do is we need to start our project with the help of Docker Compose file. And for that, I'm going to head over to our terminal. So here in terminal, I'm going to go to the root directory and I'm going to go to the company microservice directory. Now here you will see docker compose.yaml, which we have just modified. So here I'm going to say docker compose up, and I'm going to run this in detached mode. Okay. So you will see like these 4 containers were recreated. Okay. And then you have the rest of the containers created and starting. All right. So our application is now starting in the form of Docker images. Okay. And you can see all the containers have started, and you can say Docker PS. So this is going to give you the list of all the containers, okay, which you can check yourself. So you can see these are all the containers that have been started. Okay. Now if you want to remove all the images, okay, so you need to say docker compose down. Okay. So I will say you can just go over here. Okay. And you can say docker compose down like so. And it will stop all the containers. You can see it is stopping all the containers over here. And if you want to restart, or if you want to remove all the images now, okay, so let's say I want to check what all images I have on my system. So let me just zoom in a bit and I can say docker images. So this will give you the list of all the images that exist on your system along with the size. Now if you want to remove all the images that we have created, so you can say docker system prune -a. So the moment you run this, all the images will be deleted and system will be clean. But I won't be doing this because I need these images. So now I'll say docker compose up and D. So you can see everything has started now and everything is created. So this is how you can move all your microservices to Docker Compose. And you can see now how it's easy to manage all our containers and all our projects. So with the help of one command, you are able to run the entire architecture. Okay, so earlier where you had to go to each and every project and start them individually in IntelliJ, now with the help of Docker Compose, that hassle is removed. Okay, so this is how Docker Compose helps you a lot, and you just specify your configuration at one place and get going. So that's about how you can move your microservices and manage them through Docker Compose. So now that we have all our containers up, you can see the started status. So what we can do is we can head over to our browser and check in Eureka if everything is up and running. So here in browser, I'll enter the address for Eureka. Okay. And if you scroll down and hit refresh, you will see you are seeing only 2 services right now, company service and the review service. So we are not seeing rest of the services. So clearly there is a problem and we need to identify the problem. So here, if you see, I'll say Docker. So let me type in Docker PS. And if you scroll up, you're not able to see the job microservice. So it has failed. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll say I need to see the logs. So I'll say Docker compose down like so. So I'll stop everything. Okay. So one thing, if you observe, you only saw 2 microservices. You didn't see like these 2 microservices, like the company microservice. So you saw company, but you didn't see config server and the gateway. Okay. And there is a reason for this. So the reason is we have not created the Docker file for this. Okay. So application-docker properties. So let us create that as well. So I'll say -docker like so. Okay. And here what I will do is I will make some changes over here. So I'll say, instead of localhost, I'll say service registry over here. Okay. And rest everything I believe will remain the same. Okay. So this is for the gateway microservice where you are able to make these changes. Now, if you scroll down, we also need to add one more thing over here. So we need to add the settings for Zipkin, and also we need to update these names over here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I am going to open up some other microservice here. Okay. So I'll head over to this particular microservice, and here you can see this is the setting for Zipkin. So I'll just add that over here. Okay. So this is done. Okay. So this is added somewhere. Okay. So it's added over here. So I'll just replace it over here, and I'll just get rid of it from here. Okay. So this is in gateway. Now I'll scroll up, and here you will see we have everything set up to localhost. So I'll change all of this. So I'll say service registry here. Eureka server static. This is also service registry, like so. Okay. We have Zipkin configured. Here we have the review service. So this I can change to a URL. So I'll just copy this, and I'll say review 8083, like so. And I'll copy this as well, and I'll add this for job as well. So I'll say job over here. Okay. And this can be 8082. Okay. And then I'll have this. So this won't be review. Actually, it will be review MS. So let us check the microservice name over here. So if you scroll down, you will have, okay, no, so it's review. So this is what the name will be. So container name is what we are going to use over here. And this will be job 8082. Okay. And this needs to be company service. So here, instead of company service, I'll say company. Okay. And the company will be 8081, I believe. Yep. So this is done. And I don't think we are missing anything over here. Okay. So this looks good. So this is gateway. Now we need to make changes into config server. Okay. So I'll head over to the application.properties over here, and I'll just duplicate this, and I'll say Docker here, like so. And I'll have to add the, so I'll have to say, instead of localhost over here, I'll say service registry, like so. Okay. So this is done. I don't think we need to make any other changes over here. Okay. So I'll hit save, and I believe we are good to go. Okay, so config server is changed. Gateway is also changed. All right. Now we need to check for job microservice as to what issue happened over there. Okay. So I'll say Docker compose up, but this time I won't start it in detach mode. I'll just start it without detach mode. So let us see what happens. And this way we will see all the logs and the progress of whatever is happening over here. Okay. So everything is starting, and you're seeing logs for different microservices, as you can see over here. Okay. And you should see the logs for jobs microservice shortly. So company starting. Okay. So here is where job microservice is, and we can see the stack trace. You can see the error over here. Okay. So we found the error, and the error says application failed. Okay. Why did it fail? So it says property Spring profiles active imported from application-docker properties is invalid in a profile specific resource. Interesting. So let us switch over to our coding editor. So it is saying that there is a file, and it is also giving you the line number. Okay, so it's giving you the line number over here is 34. Okay, so application Docker properties within job microservice. So here you can go to application properties, and line number 34 is this. So it's saying that this is invalid. Like, you can't have the profiles set from application.properties because you are running it from Docker Compose. And by the time the application is booted, profile is already set. Okay. So what I will do is I'll get rid of this. So if we want to set the property, we can set it in the Docker compose file. So we have docker compose.yaml, and if you scroll up here, you can set the profiles from here. Okay, so I'll just get rid of that. Okay, and I'll just close this. So here I have got rid of that, and now there is one more problem over here which I see. So here we are saying config server :8080. Okay, but if you go over here, it's config server ms. So the service name is incorrect over here clearly. So I need to update the service name as well, and I'll hit save. So we have made changes to the job microservice over here, but in fact we have made changes to 3 services. One is gateway, job microservice, and the config server. So we need to create image for all 3, and we need to push it to the Docker hub. Okay, so let us do that. So over here, we have started this in non-detached mode. So I'll say Control C. Okay, since I'm on Windows, I'm saying Control C. If you're on Mac, you can press Control or Command C. Okay, so that would stop all the containers. Okay, now once all the containers have stopped, we will create images one by one, and we will get them pushed to the Docker hub. Okay, so I'll press the up arrow button, and here you can see this command here which I had executed previously to create the image of job microservice. So this will create the image for job microservice, and it's running right now. Okay, so we got few errors. Now what are the errors? The error says, okay, so because we need config server, okay, you can see there are quite a few issues. There is no database up and running. So since we stopped everything, like even PostgreSQL, and there are no containers running, this is the problem. So what we need to do is we need to say docker compose up -d here. So this will be created, and all the containers will be running, and we need to start a new PowerShell window over here. Okay, so here we have all the containers running, or instead of starting a new PowerShell window, you can just do it over here, because I just started it in detached mode. Okay, so we have database and everything running. Now I can create an image of job microservice. So the image creation process involves starting the microservice, running all the tests, and so on. So it needs things like database and all to be up and running. Okay, so now we won't get that issue because the database and everything is up and running. Okay, so this will take some time wherein it will get the image ready. Okay, but meanwhile, what I can do is I can switch over to, let's say I can go to desktop, courses, Spring Boot, and here I can switch over to config server. Okay, and we need to create an image for config server as well. All right, so what I will do is I'll scroll up and I'll look for the command that I did use to create the config server image. Okay, so I'll scroll up. So in a new tab, what I have done is I have switched over to config server directory, and I'm running this command over here. Okay, and I'll say enter. So this will create the image for config server, and I'll create a new tab again. Okay, and here I'll switch over to gateway. So gateway is the service where we made the change. Okay, so here I'll create the image for gateway service. Okay, and we need, so gateway service name is, so gateway image name is gateway-ms. So I can say gateway-ms, and I'll press enter here. Okay, so this image is also being created, and meanwhile the config server image is done. So I can say docker push, and I can just pull in the config server image. Okay, so this is being pushed, and let us switch to the first tab. So this Docker image is pushed. This is of config server, And now let us switch over to the last tab of gateway microservice, and this is also built, so we can push this. So I can say Docker push, and I can take this particular image name. Okay, so it picked in this name, so I can say gateway -ms, and it'll push gateway as well. Okay, and here if you see in the first tab, we have created the image of job microservice. So I'll copy this and I'll say Docker. So I'll say Docker push image name. So one thing you need to keep in mind is you need to make sure that you navigate to the directory of the project or microservice and then you create the image. Okay, I'll tell you one problem that I just faced in. So I was in the company microservice directory. Okay, so if I scroll up a bit here, let me scroll up. Okay, so here I created the image. Okay, and here I was in company microservice. So this command I executed, but I was in the company microservice directory. Okay, and I was creating the image for job over here. Okay, but that is not correct, right? So if you are in the company microservice directory and if you're creating an image for the job, so what is happening is the image for company microservice is being created with the name of job ms. So this is the problem over here. So I was in the same directory and I created the image for job over here. So actually I was in company microservice directory. Then what I did is I recreated the image for company over here. Okay, so if you scroll down over here, you will see that I recreate the image. Okay, so there are quite a few logs. So here I recreated the image for company microservice. Okay, and then I switched over to the directory of jobs and then I created the image over there. So here you can see I had to switch over. Okay, so just make sure that you are in the right directory. So you can see over here, this is the command that I'm talking about. So I realized that this was a mistake. So I recreated the company microservice image and then I switched over to the job microservice directory and then I triggered the request for job microservice. Okay, and you can see the request is successful and the image is created. So now what we need to do is we need to now start pushing the image for job microservice to Docker Hub. So here I'll say Docker. So one second. So Docker push job microservice and it will push all the changes. Okay. So now we have recreated the images for all three microservices. All right. And everything is pushed. Now we need to head over to company microservice directory because that is where our Docker file is. And we need to say Docker compose up. So I won't be running this in detached mode, but I'll run it in directly normal mode. Okay, let us see how this goes. So we are seeing the logs and we'll wait till all the logs have completed. Okay, and I'll keep a watch on the logs as to see if I'm not encountering any errors. So you can see all the services are up. Now let us head over to Eureka server dashboard. Now here I'm going to hit refresh and you will see all the services are up and running. Okay, so this way we have got everything running in a Docker container along with config server and everything. All right, so everything is up and running. You can see company service, job service, review service, and so on.